I used to track war criminals for the government. Now I'm hunting liars in my own living room. The coffee had gone cold 3 hours ago, but I kept sipping it anyway, staring at the security monitor in my home office. 23 years of marriage, and it all came down to watching my wife Rachel sneak around like a teenager with her first crush. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd spent 15 years in military intelligence, tracking down the worst humanity had to offer, only to discover the real enemy was sleeping next to me every night. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. "Working late again tonight, honey," Rachel had said, kissing my cheek with those perfectly glossed lips that used to mean something. Her marketing consultant routine was getting old. Hell, everything about her was getting old, especially the lies. My phone buzzed. Another text from her to someone whose contact name was just M. I'd been intercepting her messages for 2 weeks now. Old habits from my intelligence days die hard. The content made my stomach turn. "Can't wait to see you tonight. David's watching his war documentaries again like the boring old man he is. God, I need to get out of this house." David. That's me. Boring old man at 42, apparently. The same boring old man who'd spent his career hunting down Serbian war criminals and dismantling human trafficking networks. But sure, Rachel, I'm the boring one. I leaned back in my leather chair, the same one I'd bought when I transitioned from government work to private security consulting 5 years ago. The suburban life in Bethesda was supposed to be our reward. The big house with the perfect lawn, the neighborhood where everyone drove German cars and pretended their marriages weren't falling apart behind closed doors. The security camera footage told a different story. Rachel pulling into our driveway at 11:47 p.m. last Tuesday, fixing her makeup in the rearview mirror. Wednesday, she came home with her blouse buttoned wrong. Thursday, she'd forgotten to put her wedding ring back on. Amateur hour. In Bosnia, mistakes like that got you eliminated. My son Jamie knocked on my office door, his 8-year-old face peering around the corner. The kid had been born with mild cerebral palsy, nothing that stopped him from being brilliant. Just made him walk with a slight limp and gave him trouble with fine motor skills. Rachel used to say he was perfect anyway, used to. "Dad, Mom's not coming to my school play tomorrow, is she?" The question hit like a punch to the gut. Jamie's school play, the one he'd been practicing for months, the one where he finally got a speaking role as the narrator. Rachel had promised to be there. "What makes you think that, buddy?" "She said she might have to work late. She always has to work late now?" His shoulders slumped in that way that broke my heart. Kids know. They always know when their world is falling apart. I pulled him into a hug, breathing in that kid smell of strawberry shampoo and playground dirt. "I'll be there, Jamie, front row, center seat, and I'll record the whole thing so we can watch it together later. Promise?" "Promise." After Jamie went to bed, I returned to my surveillance. The pattern was clear now. Rachel met her mystery man every Tuesday and Thursday at the Marriott downtown. Fridays were apparently reserved for drinks with her sister Melissa, though I suspected that was cover for something else entirely. Melissa. Rachel's younger sister, the entitled princess who'd never worked a real day in her life, but somehow always had opinions about everyone else's choices. She'd been poisoning Rachel against me for years, filling her head with nonsense about settling and deserving better. The woman lived in a fantasy world funded by her trust fund and her third husband's pharmaceutical money. My secure phone rang, the one I used for consulting work. The caller ID showed Marcus Thompson, an old Army buddy who now ran a private investigation firm in D.C. "Dave, you awake?" "Unfortunately. What's up, Mark?" "Got some information you're not going to like. About your wife." "I'm listening." "The guy she's seeing, Michael Brennan, Melissa's brother-in-law, been going on for about 6 months from what I can tell. They're not exactly subtle about it." "Melissa's brother-in-law." "Of course." The pieces clicked into place like a rifle bolt sliding home. All those family dinners where Melissa insisted Michael join us, all those accidental encounters at the country club, all those times Rachel came home from sister time glowing like a teenager. "There's more, Dave. They've been talking about you, specifically about your condition." "What condition?" "The PTSD, the nightmares. They think you're unstable. Melissa's been telling people you're dangerous, that Rachel's afraid of you." The room went quiet, except for the hum of my computer fans. 23 years of marriage, and they were building a narrative to justify betrayal. Classic misdirection, make the victim into the villain. How dangerous am I supposed to be, Mark? Dangerous enough that they're consulting lawyers. Melissa's been pushing Rachel to file for divorce and claim emotional abuse. They want full custody of Jamie. The words hit like shrapnel. They could lie about me, destroy my reputation, even steal my money. But Jamie was the line in the sand. The kid who looked at me like I hung the moon, who didn't care about my limp or my scars, or the nights I woke up screaming from dreams about mass graves in Eastern Europe. Mark, I need you to do something for me. Name it. Full surveillance package on Michael Brennan and Melissa, financial records, travel patterns, communications, everything, and I need it yesterday. Dave, what are you planning? I stared at the security monitor showing my empty driveway, knowing Rachel was probably in some hotel room right now, planning my destruction while she played house with another man. I'm going hunting. The next morning, Rachel played the perfect suburban wife routine. She made pancakes, Jamie's favorite, and fussed over his costume for the school play. The performance was Oscar-worthy, if you ignored the fact that she kept checking her phone every 30 seconds. I'm so sorry, sweetheart, she said, ruffling Jamie's hair with manufactured affection. Mommy has a really important client meeting tonight, but Daddy will be there, and I'll want to hear all about it when I get home. Jamie nodded, but I could see the disappointment in his eyes. Rachel saw it too and quickly looked away, busying herself with clearing dishes that didn't need clearing. What client? I asked casually, sipping my coffee and reading the Washington Post like I didn't have a care in the world. New account. Tech startup in Arlington. They want a full marketing overhaul. The lie rolled off her tongue so smoothly I almost admired the craftsmanship. Sounds important. What's the company name? Maybe I know someone there. For just a second, panic flashed across her face. It's still confidential. NDA stuff. You know how it is? I knew how it was, all right. Rachel had never signed an NDA in her life. Her biggest client was a local restaurant chain that wanted help with their Yelp reviews. After she left for work, I opened my laptop and pulled up Mark's preliminary report on Michael Brennan. 38 years old, divorced, worked in pharmaceutical sales for his brother's company, made decent money but spent more, gambling problem from the looks of his credit card statements. 2 DUIs in the past 5 years, both somehow reduced to reckless driving charges. Money and connections could make a lot of problems disappear. The interesting part was his relationship with Melissa. They'd been unusually close since his divorce 2 years ago, traveling together, sharing expenses, even co-signing a loan for his condo. Either they were sleeping together or she was bankrolling his lifestyle for some other reason. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Your wife's at the Marriott again, room 237. Thought you should know. A friend. I stared at the message for a long moment. Someone else was watching. Someone who wanted me to know about Rachel's affair. In my old line of work, that usually meant one of two things. Either someone was trying to help me or someone was setting me up. Given the timing, I suspected the latter. But it didn't matter. I had Jamie's school play in 4 hours, and I wasn't going to let Rachel's drama ruin his big night. The elementary school auditorium was packed with proud parents wielding smartphones and cameras. I found my seat in the front row, just as promised, and watched Jamie peek out from behind the curtain, scanning the crowd for his mother. When he spotted me instead, his face lit up with a smile that made every sleepless night worth it. The play was a retelling of local history, with Jamie narrating the story of how Bethesda got its name. He spoke clearly and confidently, his slight speech impediment barely noticeable. I recorded every second, my heart swelling with pride. That's your boy up there? I turned to find Tom Henderson, one of the other dads, settling into the seat next to me. We'd been friendly for years. Our kids played together sometimes, and we'd shared beers at neighborhood barbecues. Yeah, that's Jamie. He's been practicing for months. Where's Rachel? Thought she'd be here for sure. Work emergency, I said, the lie tasting bitter in my mouth. Tom nodded sympathetically. Sarah had to miss Kevin's soccer game last week for the same reason. These career women, right? Sometimes I wonder if they remember they have families. After the play, Jamie ran up to me, still wearing his costume, a colonial-era outfit complete with tricorn hat. Did I do good, Dad? You did great, buddy. I'm so proud of you. I hugged him tight, breathing in that familiar scent of kid shampoo and stage makeup. Can we get ice cream to celebrate? Absolutely. But first, let's go show Mom the video. We drove home through the quiet suburban streets, Jamie chattering excitedly about his performance. The house was dark when we pulled into the driveway, Rachel's car nowhere to be seen. It was nearly 10 p.m. Inside, I helped Jamie out of his costume and into his pajamas. Then we settled on the couch to watch the video of his performance. He fell asleep halfway through, curled up against my side like a contented cat. I was carrying him to his bedroom when Rachel's key turned in the front door. She stepped inside, looking perfectly put together except for the slight flush in her cheeks and the way she avoided my eyes. How did it go? she whispered, noticing Jamie in my arms. "See for yourself." I nodded toward the laptop on the coffee table, where the video was still playing. "He was amazing. Asked where you were." Guilt flickered across her face, but she quickly masked it with irritation. "I told you, I had a client meeting. Some of us have to work for a living." The dig was meant to hurt, a reference to my transition from government salary to consulting income, which had been rocky at first, but I'd been called worse things by better people. "How did it go? The meeting?" "Fine. Good. They're going to sign with us." Another lie, delivered with less conviction than the morning's performance. I tucked Jamie into bed, kissing his forehead and whispering how proud I was of him. When I returned to the living room, Rachel was pouring herself a large glass of wine, her third tell of the evening. She only drank when she was nervous or guilty. "We need to talk," I said, settling into my chair across from her. "About what?" "About us. About whatever's going on with you lately. You've been distant, distracted." Jamie's noticed. She took a large gulp of wine, her hands trembling slightly. "I don't know what you mean." "Rachel, I'm not stupid. The late nights, the phone calls, the way you flinch when I touch you. If something's wrong, we should talk about it." For a moment, I thought she might confess. Her eyes filled with tears, and her carefully constructed facade began to crack. But then her phone buzzed with a text message, and the walls went back up. "Nothing's wrong, David. You're being paranoid. Maybe you should talk to someone about that." The suggestion hit like a slap. She was already laying groundwork for the narrative Melissa had been spreading, that I was unstable, paranoid, potentially dangerous. Classic gaslighting, designed to make me question my own perceptions. "Maybe I should," I said quietly. "Maybe we both should." She finished her wine in one gulp and stood up abruptly. "I'm tired. I'm going to bed." I watched her climb the stairs, noting how she took her phone with her, something she'd never done in 23 years of marriage. In the old days, we'd leave our phones on the kitchen counter overnight, charging side by side like they were holding hands. Those days were over. I returned to my office and opened Mark's full report on Michael Brennan. The man was a walking disaster. Gambling debts, tax liens, a restraining order from his ex-wife that had mysteriously disappeared from public records. But he was charming, apparently, and Melissa vouched for him, which was enough to get him invited into our social circle. The financial records were particularly interesting. Large cash deposits every month, always just under the federal reporting threshold. Either he was dealing drugs or someone was paying him for services rendered. Given Melissa's involvement, I suspected the latter. My secure phone rang again. Mark's number. "Dave, you need to see this. Can you meet me tomorrow morning?" "What is it?" "Evidence. The kind that changes everything. But not over the phone." "Where and when?" "That diner on Wisconsin Avenue, 8 E's. And Dave, watch your back. These people aren't playing games." I hung up and stared out my office window at the quiet suburban street. Porch lights glowed like fireflies, illuminating the perfect facades of perfect homes hiding imperfect secrets. Tomorrow, I'd learn just how deep those secrets ran. But tonight, I had planning to do. The diner on Wisconsin Avenue was a throwback to the 1950s, complete with red vinyl booths and a jukebox that actually worked. Mark was already there when I arrived, nursing black coffee and looking like he hadn't slept in days. "You look like hell," I said, sliding into the booth across from him. "Wait until you see what I found." He pushed a manila envelope across the table. "Open it, but keep it low. This stuff could get us both eliminated." Inside were photographs, bank statements, and what looked like surveillance transcripts. The photos showed Michael Brennan meeting with men I didn't recognize. Expensive suits, foreign cars, the kind of people who made their living in gray areas of the law. Who are these guys? Eastern European, specifically Serbian. Remember those war criminals you used to hunt? Some of their associates are alive and well and living in America under new identities. What does this have to do with Rachel and Brennan? Brennan's been laundering money for them through his pharmaceutical company. Small amounts, spread across multiple accounts, but it adds up to millions over the past 3 years. Melissa's been helping, using her social connections to introduce Brennan to potential investors and business partners. I studied the bank statements, recognizing the patterns from my intelligence days. Classic money laundering, dirty cash flowing through legitimate businesses, coming out clean on the other side. "There's more," Mark continued. "They've been using your house for meetings. When you're at work and Jamie's at school, Rachel lets them use your home office. They think it's secure because of your government background. Who would suspect the former intelligence officer's house?" The betrayal hit deeper than the affair. Rachel hadn't just cheated on me. She'd turned our home into a criminal enterprise. Every family dinner with Melissa, every accidental encounter with Brennan, every lie about working late had been part of a larger scheme. How long have you known about this? The affair, I suspected for months. The criminal stuff, I only confirmed it yesterday. Dave, these aren't just cheating spouses. They're part of an international money laundering operation. The same people you used to hunt are now using your wife to hide their assets. I thought about Jamie sleeping peacefully in his bed, completely unaware that his mother was entertaining war criminals in his father's office. The rage that built in my chest was different from anything I'd felt during the divorce proceedings, or even when I'd discovered the affair. This was the cold, calculating anger I'd learned in the military, the kind that got things done. What do you need from me? Nothing. You need to stay out of this, Dave. I'm turning everything over to the FBI this afternoon. They'll handle it from here. Like hell they will. I closed the envelope and leaned back in the booth. These people used my son's home to hide dirty money. They put my family at risk. They don't get to walk away from this. Dave, listen to me. No, you listen to me. I spent 15 years hunting these bastards across 3 continents. I know how they think, how they operate, how they disappear when things get hot. The FBI will spend 6 months building a case, and by then Brennan and his friends will be long gone. Mark rubbed his temples, looking older than his 45 years. What are you planning? I'm going to do what I do best. I'm going to hunt. I left the diner with the envelope tucked inside my jacket, my mind already working through the tactical possibilities. The first step was confirming what Mark had told me. I needed to see the criminal activity with my own eyes. Back home, Rachel was getting ready for work, applying makeup with the precision of a surgeon. She'd always been beautiful, but lately there was something artificial about her appearance. Too much effort for someone who claimed to be stressed about finances. You're up early, she said, not looking at me in the bathroom mirror. Couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about Jamie's play last night. A flicker of guilt crossed her face, but she quickly covered it with irritation. I said I was sorry about missing it. Some of us have to work. Speaking of work, when's your next big client meeting? Thursday. Why? Thursday. According to Mark's surveillance, that was when Brennan and his associates typically met at our house. Rachel would take Jamie to school, then come back to play hostess to international criminals. Just curious, maybe Jamie and I will go to a movie that afternoon, give you some quiet time to prepare. She nodded, relieved that I wouldn't be around to interfere with whatever she had planned. After Rachel left for her real job, she still worked part-time for the restaurant chain, though she'd been telling me for months that she'd quit. I installed additional security cameras in my office. Tiny devices, military grade, that would record everything in high definition. If criminals were using my home, I wanted evidence. The next 2 days passed slowly. I maintained my normal routine, taking Jamie to school, working on legitimate consulting projects, playing the oblivious husband. But underneath the suburban normalcy, I was preparing for war. Thursday morning arrived gray and overcast, matching my mood. I drove Jamie to school, making sure to kiss him goodbye and tell him I loved him. If things went wrong, I wanted those to be the last words he remembered. "Dad, you're acting weird," he said, studying my face with 8-year-old wisdom. "Just thinking about work stuff, buddy. Nothing for you to worry about." "Are you and Mom getting divorced?" The question hit like a physical blow. What makes you ask that? Kevin's parents got divorced last year. His dad moved out and they had to sell their house. Kevin said his parents acted weird before it happened, just like you and Mom are acting now. I knelt down to his eye level, taking his small hands in mine. "Jamie, no matter what happens between your mom and me, I will always be your dad. I will always love you, and I will never let anyone hurt you. Do you understand?" He nodded solemnly, too young to understand the full weight of my promise, but old enough to recognize its importance. After dropping Jamie at school, I drove home and parked 3 blocks away, then approached the house on foot through the neighbor's backyard. My office window faced the street, giving me a clear view of anyone who came or went. At 10:15 a.m., a black Mercedes pulled into my driveway. 2 men got out. One I recognized from Mark's photographs, the other was new. Both carried briefcases and moved with the careful awareness of people accustomed to violence. Rachel met them at the front door, smiling and welcoming them like old friends. She led them directly to my office, where they settled around my desk, the same desk where I'd planned military operations and tracked war criminals across international borders. The irony was perfect and infuriating. I activated the remote monitoring system from my phone, watching as the men opened their briefcases and spread documents across my workspace. Bank statements, shipping manifests, what looked like pharmaceutical invoices. Rachel took notes, asking questions, playing the role of helpful accomplice. "The kid's father is former military intelligence," one of the men said in accented English. "Are you sure he suspects nothing?" Rachel's laugh was light and dismissive. David's a broken-down old soldier who spends his time watching war documentaries and feeling sorry for himself. He has no idea what's going on. And if he becomes suspicious? He won't, but if he does, we have contingency plans. Melissa's been documenting his erratic behavior, his drinking, his violent outbursts. If necessary, we can have him committed for psychiatric evaluation. The casual way she discussed destroying my life and taking my son made something snap inside my chest. This wasn't just about money or even the affair. They were planning to erase me entirely. I had heard enough. I spent the rest of Thursday documenting everything. The security cameras captured 3 hours of criminal conspiracy, including detailed discussions of money transfers, shipping routes, and future operations. More importantly, they captured Rachel's enthusiastic participation and her casual dismissal of me as a threat. By evening, I had enough evidence to destroy everyone involved. But evidence was just the beginning. Jamie came home from school excited about a science project, chattering about volcanoes and chemical reactions while Rachel pretended to listen. She'd perfected the art of looking engaged while her mind was elsewhere, probably calculating her cut of whatever deal she'd helped broker that morning. "How was your day, honey?" I asked her over dinner, my voice carefully neutral. Busy, lots of paperwork. She didn't even bother to elaborate on the lie anymore. "And your client meeting went well?" "Very well. We should know more next week." Jamie looked back and forth between us, sensing the undercurrents he couldn't quite understand. Kids always know when something's wrong, even if they can't articulate what it is. After dinner, I helped Jamie with his homework while Rachel disappeared upstairs with her phone. She'd been spending more time in the bedroom lately, making calls she didn't want me to overhear. Tonight would be no different. "Dad, can I ask you something?" Jamie said, looking up from his math worksheet. "Sure, buddy." "If someone was doing something bad and you knew about it, what would you do?" The question caught me off guard. What kind of bad thing? "I don't know, just bad. Like hurting people bad." I set down his pencil and gave him my full attention. "Jamie, is someone hurting you?" "No, not me. But I heard some people talking at school, and they said sometimes parents do bad things that hurt their kids without meaning to." My heart clenched. He knew more than I'd given him credit for. If someone was doing something that hurt people, especially kids, then it would be important to stop them, even if it was hard, even if it meant making difficult choices. He nodded seriously, as if filing away this information for future use. "Would you stop them, Dad? Even if you loved them?" "Especially if I loved them, Jamie. Sometimes loving someone means protecting them from themselves." That night, after Jamie was asleep and Rachel was locked in the bedroom with her phone, I made my own calls. The first was to Agent Sarah Chen at the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit, someone I'd worked with during my government days who owed me several favors. "Dave, it's been years. How are you holding up in suburbia?" "Not great, Sarah. I need a favor, a big one." I explained the situation without mentioning my personal involvement, presenting it as intelligence I'd gathered through my consulting work. Sarah listened without interrupting, asking pointed questions that told me she was taking notes. "This is serious stuff, Dave. International money laundering, possible RICO violations. How solid is your evidence?" "Rock solid. Video, audio, financial records, the works. But I need you to move fast. These people are planning something big, and I think they're getting ready to disappear. Send me everything you have. I'll put together a task force tonight." The second call was to Tom Henderson, my neighbor and fellow father. Tom worked in pharmaceutical regulation, not exactly law enforcement, but close enough for what I needed. "Dave, it's kind of late for a social call." "Tom, I need to ask you something, and I need you to keep it between us. Do you know anything about Brennan Pharmaceuticals, specifically about their import-export operations?" There was a long pause. "Why are you asking?" "I can't get into details, but I think they might be involved in something illegal, something that could affect our neighborhood, our kids." "Jesus, Dave, I can't discuss ongoing investigations." "Ongoing investigations?" Another pause, longer this time. "We've been looking at Brennan Pharmaceuticals for 6 months. Suspicious shipping patterns, unexplained inventory discrepancies, connections to shell companies overseas, but we haven't been able to prove anything concrete." "What if I told you I could provide concrete proof?" "I'd say you need to be very careful who you trust with that information, and I'd say you need to get your family somewhere safe before you do anything else." The third call was the hardest one. Mark answered on the first ring, as if he'd been waiting. "Dave, please tell me you didn't do anything stupid today." "Define stupid. Did you turn over the evidence to the FBI?" "This morning. Agent Chen called me an hour ago. said you'd been in touch. Dave, these people are dangerous. If they suspect you know anything, they already suspect. I heard them talking about contingency plans, about having me committed if I become a problem. They're not just stealing money, Mark. They're planning to take my son. Then get out, tonight. Take Jamie and disappear until the FBI can round them up. And go where? Live in hiding while they destroy everything I've built? Let them win? Let them live, you mean? Dave, I know that tone. You're planning something that's going to get you eliminated. I'm planning something that's going to end this. These bastards made 2 mistakes. They underestimated me and they threatened my son. I've started wars over less. I hung up before Mark could argue further. He was right about one thing. I was planning something dangerous. But he was wrong about the outcome. I wasn't the broken-down old soldier Rachel thought I was. I was a predator who'd spent 15 years hunting the most dangerous criminals in the world, and now they'd given me the perfect reason to hunt again. Friday morning dawned clear and cold. Rachel left early for what she claimed was a breakfast meeting with potential clients. Jamie had a field trip to the Natural History Museum, which meant he'd be safely away from whatever was about to unfold. I kissed him goodbye at the school bus, holding him a little longer than usual. "Dad, you're being weird again," he said, but he was smiling. "I love you, buddy. Remember that, okay?" "I love you too, Dad. See you tonight." I watched the bus disappear around the corner, then went home to prepare for war. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. I would use their own criminal network against them, turning their associates into witnesses and their money into evidence. But first, I needed to isolate the key players and cut off their escape routes. Michael Brennan lived in a condo in Arlington, financed by dirty money and guaranteed by Melissa's connections. According to Mark's surveillance, he kept backup files and emergency cash in a safe behind his bedroom closet, standard procedure for criminals who knew their operations might be compromised. Breaking into his condo was almost insultingly easy. The man who'd helped launder millions of dollars couldn't be bothered to invest in decent security. I was inside in under 3 minutes, moving through his space like a ghost. The safe was exactly where Mark had said it would be, hidden behind a false wall that wouldn't have fooled a determined teenager. Inside, I found everything I needed. Backup drives containing financial records, photographs of meetings I'd never seen, and enough cash to fund a small revolution. But the most interesting discovery was a handwritten ledger detailing payments to various accomplices. Rachel's name appeared frequently, along with amounts that made my stomach turn. She hadn't just been helping with meetings, she'd been actively participating in the money laundering operation for over a year. Melissa's name was there too, along with payments that dwarfed Rachel's. She wasn't just the enabler I'd thought. She was the architect of the entire operation, using her social connections and family relationships to build a criminal network that stretched from suburban Maryland to the Balkans. I photographed everything, uploaded copies to secure servers, and left the originals exactly where I'd found them. Brennan would never know I'd been there, but the FBI would have everything they needed to build an airtight case. The next stop was Melissa's house in Potomac, a sprawling estate that had always seemed too expensive for someone with no visible means of support. Now I knew where the money came from. Melissa wasn't home, but her housekeeper was. I introduced myself as Rachel's husband and explained that I was picking up some documents Melissa had borrowed for a family legal matter. The housekeeper, who'd known me for years, let me into Melissa's home office without question. What I found there made the condo safe look like amateur hour. Melissa had been running a sophisticated criminal enterprise, using her deceased husband's pharmaceutical patents as cover for money laundering operations that spanned 3 continents. The scope was breathtaking. Millions of dollars in dirty money cleaned through a network of shell companies and legitimate businesses, but the most damning evidence was her communications with Rachel, email chains dating back 18 months, detailing plans to remove me from the picture and gain full custody of Jamie. They'd been planning this for longer than the affair had been going on. The affair was just one piece of a larger scheme to steal my life. I copied everything, then made one small addition to Melissa's files, a document that would ensure she understood exactly who she'd been underestimating, a document that would make it clear that the broken-down old soldier was very much alive and extremely dangerous. By the time I finished, it was nearly 3 p.m. Jamie would be home from his field trip soon, and Rachel would return from whatever criminal meeting she'd attended that morning. Everything was in place for the final act. I drove home through the quiet suburban streets, noting how peaceful everything looked. Manicured lawns, expensive cars, the illusion of safety and prosperity. None of the neighbors had any idea that their community had been infiltrated by international criminals, or that one of their own had been helping to launder dirty money. That was about to change. Rachel was already home when I arrived, sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop and a stack of papers. She looked up when I walked in, her expression carefully neutral. "How was your day?" she asked, the question automatic and meaningless. Productive, very productive. Where's Jamie? Upstairs, working on homework. The field trip wore him out. She gestured at her papers. I'm trying to finish some client work before dinner. Client work? Even now, surrounded by evidence of her criminal activities, she maintained the fiction. I almost admired her commitment to the lie. Rachel, we need to talk. Something in my tone made her look up sharply. For the first time in months, I had her full attention. About what? I sat down across from her, noting how she instinctively moved her laptop out of my line of sight. About your real clients. About Michael Brennan. About the money you've been laundering through our home. The color drained from her face, but she recovered quickly. I don't know what you're talking about. Thursday morning. Black Mercedes in our driveway, 2 Serbian nationals with briefcases full of financial documents. 3 hours of criminal conspiracy recorded in high-definition video from my office. She stared at me for a long moment, calculating her options. I could see the wheels turning. Deny everything, claim I was having another PTSD episode, stick to the narrative she and Melissa had constructed about my mental instability. David, you're scaring me. Maybe you should call Dr. Morrison, talk to someone about these paranoid thoughts. Dr. Morrison was the VA psychiatrist I'd seen after leaving government service, part of the transition counseling that all intelligence officers received. Rachel was trying to use my own medical history against me, painting me as delusional and dangerous. I'm not paranoid, Rachel. I'm informed. I know about the money laundering operation. I know about your relationship with Brennan. I know about Melissa's plan to have me committed so you can take Jamie. Her facade cracked slightly. You're not well, David. You haven't been well for years. The nightmares, the drinking, the way you watch everyone like their enemies. The way I watched you mean. The way I noticed when you started lying about working late, when you started taking your phone to bed, when you started flinching every time I touched you. She stood up abruptly, backing away from the table. I want you to leave. Take your conspiracy theories and your surveillance equipment and get out of my house. Your house? I laughed, a sound with no humor in it. Rachel, this house is about to become evidence in a federal investigation, along with your laptop, your phone, and every document you've been hiding upstairs. You're bluffing. I pulled out my phone and showed her a photograph, one of many I'd taken that morning in Brennan's condo. Her face in clear focus, sitting across a table from known criminals, counting stacks of cash. FBI agent Sarah Chen received these photos about an hour ago, along with financial records showing 18 months of money laundering activities. She's very interested in talking to you. Rachel sank back into her chair, the fight going out of her like air from a punctured balloon. David, you don't understand. It's not what it looks like. It looks like my wife has been helping Serbian war criminals launder dirty money through my home while planning to steal my son and have me committed to a psychiatric facility. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Melissa said it would be simple, just a few transactions to help Michael get back on his feet. I never meant for it to go this far. But it did go this far. And when it got complicated, instead of coming to me for help, you decided I was the problem? You decided I was the enemy? Tears started flowing down her cheeks. Real ones, not the manufactured emotion she'd been showing lately. I was scared. Melissa said you were getting suspicious, that you might do something violent. She said the only way to protect Jamie was to get you out of the picture. Protect Jamie from what? From his father who loves him? Or protect your criminal operation from someone who might expose it? Before she could answer, the front door opened and Melissa walked in without knocking, something she'd been doing for years that had always annoyed me. Today, it felt like a violation. Rachel, we need to... She stopped when she saw me sitting at the table. David, I didn't expect you to be home. I bet you didn't. How's the pharmaceutical business, Melissa? Making good money importing Serbian medications? Her expression hardened. I don't know what Rachel's told you, but... Rachel didn't tell me anything. I found out on my own. Amazing what you can learn when you actually investigate instead of just believing lies. Melissa moved to stand behind Rachel's chair, a gesture that looked protective but felt threatening. David, you're obviously having one of your episodes. Why don't you go upstairs and rest while Rachel and I handle this? Handle what? The FBI raid that's coming? The federal charges for money laundering? The investigation into your connections with Serbian criminals? You're bluffing, Melissa said, but her voice lacked conviction. I showed her the same photograph I'd shown Rachel, watching her face go pale. Agent Chen was particularly interested in your role as the operations architect. Apparently, using family relationships to facilitate international money laundering carries some serious federal penalties. You bastard, Melissa whispered. You've destroyed everything. I've exposed everything. There's a difference. Dad? We all turned to see Jamie standing in the kitchen doorway, still wearing his school clothes and carrying his backpack. His young face was confused and frightened by the tension he could feel but not understand. "Hey, buddy," I said, forcing my voice to sound calm. "How was the museum?" "It was good. We saw dinosaurs." He looked at his mother's tear-stained face, then at Melissa's angry expression. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine, sweetheart," Rachel said, wiping her eyes. "Mommy and Aunt Melissa are just talking about grown-up stuff." But Jamie wasn't fooled. He walked over to me, and I lifted him onto my lap, feeling his small body trembling slightly. "Dad, are you and Mom getting divorced now?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Rachel looked at me pleadingly, as if I might somehow make this all go away, pretend I'd never discovered her betrayal. "Jamie, sometimes adults make mistakes. Big mistakes that hurt the people they love. When that happens, there have to be consequences." "What kind of consequences?" Before I could answer, my phone rang. Agent Chen's number. "I have to take this," I said, gently moving Jamie off my lap. "Sarah, what's the status?" "We're moving tonight. Warrants are signed, teams are in position. We'll have Brennan and his associates in custody within the hour." "What about the others?" "Your wife and sister-in-law will be arrested tomorrow morning. We wanted to give you time to make arrangements for your son." I looked at Jamie, who was watching me with wide, serious eyes. Rachel was crying silently, and Melissa looked like she wanted to run. "I'll be ready," I told Agent Chen. After I hung up, the kitchen fell silent except for the sound of Rachel's quiet sobbing. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you face the consequences of your choices. Both of you." "What about Jamie?" Melissa demanded. "What happens to him while you're playing your revenge games?" The question sparked something dangerous in my chest. Jamie will be with me, where he's always belonged, where he'll be safe from people who use children as leverage in criminal enterprises. "You can't prove I ever threatened Jamie." "I can prove you planned to have me committed so you could gain custody of him. I can prove you've been using him as cover for your criminal activities. I can prove you've put him in danger by bringing Serbian war criminals into his home." Melissa's composure finally cracked. "You self-righteous bastard. You think you're some kind of hero. You're just a broken-down soldier who can't let go of the past." "Maybe, but I'm a broken-down soldier who spent 15 years hunting people exactly like you, and I'm very good at it." The sound of cars pulling into the driveway interrupted our confrontation. Through the kitchen window, I could see black SUVs with government plates. "Dad, who are those people?" Jamie asked, pressing closer to me. "They're police officers, buddy. They're here to arrest some bad people who have been doing illegal things." Rachel stood up shakily. "David, please. I know I made mistakes, but I'm still Jamie's mother. Don't let them take me away from him like this." For a moment, I felt a flicker of the old compassion, the love that had sustained us through 23 years of marriage. But then I remembered her casual dismissal of me as a broken-down old soldier, her willingness to have me committed, her laughter when criminals mocked our son. "You took yourself away from him, Rachel. The moment you chose money over family, you stopped being his mother." The doorbell rang, followed by authoritative knocking. "FBI, we have warrants." I walked to the front door with Jamie in my arms, leaving Rachel and Melissa to face the consequences of their choices. Agent Chen stood on my porch with a team of federal agents, all business in their dark suits and serious expressions. "Agent Chen, this is my son Jamie. Jamie, this is Agent Chen. She's one of the good guys." Sarah smiled at Jamie, her expression softening. "Hi, Jamie. We're going to need to talk to your mom and your aunt for a while. Is that okay?" Jamie nodded solemnly, still not fully understanding, but trusting me to handle whatever was happening. The next hour was a blur of Miranda rights, handcuffs, and evidence collection. Rachel and Melissa were arrested without incident, though Melissa continued to protest her innocence right up until the moment they put her in the back of a federal vehicle. Rachel looked back at Jamie and me as they led her away, her face a mask of regret and desperation. For a moment, she looked like the woman I'd fallen in love with 23 years ago, before the lies, before the betrayal, before she chose criminals over family. But that woman was gone, if she'd ever really existed at all. After the agents left with their prisoners and their evidence, Jamie and I sat on the front porch, watching the sun set over our quiet suburban neighborhood. Several neighbors had come out to watch the arrest, their faces full of shock and curiosity. "Dad, is Mom going to jail?" "Probably, buddy. She did some very bad things, and there have to be consequences." "Will I see her again?" "I don't know. Maybe someday, when she's learned from her mistakes." He leaned against me, processing this information with 8-year-old logic. Are you sad? Yes, I'm sad. But I'm also proud. Proud of what? Proud that I protected you. Proud that I stopped the bad people from hurting our family anymore. Jamie nodded, accepting this explanation with the resilience that children possess. Will it just be us now? Just us, buddy. Is that okay? Yeah, I like it better when it's just us anyway. You don't lie to me. His simple honesty hit harder than any of the day's revelations. In trying to protect him from the truth, Rachel had lost his trust completely. In trying to steal him from me, she'd driven him closer to the only parent who'd never lied to him. That night, after Jamie was asleep, I sat in my office reviewing the evidence that would put my wife and sister-in-law in federal prison. Financial records, surveillance footage, recorded conversations, enough proof to ensure they'd face serious consequences for their crimes. But the real victory wasn't their arrests or their convictions. The real victory was the 8-year-old boy sleeping peacefully upstairs, safe from the criminals who'd tried to use him as a pawn in their schemes. I'd spent 15 years hunting war criminals across 3 continents. But the most important hunt of my life had taken place in my own home, against people I'd trusted with my family's safety. I'd won. Jamie was safe. The criminals were in custody. And for the first time in months, I slept without nightmares. 6 months later, Rachel and Melissa were sentenced to federal prison. Rachel got 8 years, Melissa got 15. Michael Brennan and his Serbian associates received much harsher sentences, as did the other members of their money laundering network. Jamie and I moved to a smaller house in a different neighborhood, away from the memories and the gossip. He adjusted well, as children do, and rarely asked about his mother. When he did, I told him the truth in age-appropriate terms, that she'd made bad choices and was learning from her mistakes. The divorce was finalized without contest. Rachel's criminal conviction made custody arrangements simple. I got everything, including full parental rights. She would be eligible for supervised visitation after serving her sentence, but only if Jamie wanted to see her. Tom Henderson and I became closer friends, bonding over single parenthood and the shared knowledge of how quickly suburban normalcy could hide criminal enterprises. His investigation into Brennan Pharmaceuticals led to a major reorganization of pharmaceutical import regulations. Agent Chen kept in touch, occasionally consulting with me on cases involving international money laundering. The skills I'd learned hunting war criminals translated well to financial crimes, and I found a new purpose in helping law enforcement dismantle criminal networks. But my most important job remained the same, being Jamie's father, teaching him right from wrong, showing him that actions have consequences, and proving that some people can be trusted to keep their promises. On quiet evenings, when Jamie was doing homework and I was reviewing case files, I sometimes thought about the man I'd been before all this started, the trusting husband who believed his wife's lies, who thought his biggest problems were nightmares and suburban boredom. That man was gone, replaced by someone harder and more suspicious, but ultimately more honest. Someone who understood that the real monsters weren't always hiding in foreign countries or ancient conflicts. Sometimes they were sleeping in your bed, planning your destruction while you dreamed of better days. But I'd hunted monsters before, and I'd learned the most important lesson of all. When you find them in your own home, you don't negotiate. You eliminate the threat and protect what matters most. Jamie was what mattered most. Everything else was just noise.